I'm Janelle Nanos, business reporter with the Boston Globe, and this is Bold Types, conversations with New England's business leaders. Today, we're talking sustainability with Andrea Stanley, co-founder of Valley Malt and Ground Up Grain. Andrea, thank you so much for having us. Now, where are we exactly? Tell me a little bit about this space.
Okay, well, right now we're in our office here in Holyoke, Massachusetts. And this is where in 2021, we started leasing this building to grow both of our businesses, which are a malt house, Valley Malt, and that was our first business that we started back in 2009. And then Ground Up, which is our flour mill, which we started in 2019.
You've been working in this space now for a little over a dozen years. How did you get into the grain business, the malt business, to start?
Well, it started with an article actually that I read in a local newspaper. I was drawn to the article because it was about local bakeries in Northampton, my favorite bakery, the Hungry Ghost, with a few other bakeries in the Vermont area that were trying to recreate a local loaf of bread. So trying to bring back that idea of growing grains in the New England area, having it milled fresh without any kind of additives or preservatives, and being able to sort of express that through loaves of sourdough bread. And the article just really got me thinking about local food in a new way that I had never really thought about before. And about 48 hours after reading that article, we were up in Portland, Maine for the weekend with our kids, just enjoying Portland and also enjoying the craft beer culture that's in Portland. And just this like kind of little switch went on where I thought, oh my gosh, what about local grains for craft beer? Craft beer is becoming such an important part of our local economy and, places to go and enjoy being with friends. And so I just thought about, what if we were able to start a brewery where we introduced this idea of 100% locally grown ingredients in our beer.
Wow.
And as I started to look into that a little bit more, I realized that there was nowhere to send the grain to have it malted to make it into beer.
But how did you decide this is really what we need to be doing? We need to be doing that piece of the supply chain, the malting, as opposed to having it just kind of be an offshoot of something you were brewing.
I think immediately when we realized that that was the missing piece and that we had the interest and somewhat the skill set to be able to fill that gap. And really from there, malting, it just took on its own energy in both of us where we were just really, really excited about this idea of malting and about, being that middle person to really provide the farmer a market for what they can grow, but also provide craft breweries with the ability to tell a story that's not just about their brewery and the stainless steel and the beer that they make, but also that it's part of a bigger ecology of supporting local farms, keeping money that they're spending, the money that they spend on malt from Valley Malt is part of more of a circular economy, right? Where everything is staying and being reinvested versus more of an extractive economy, which is, what happens in the mainstream malt system is that you have these large agribusinesses. There's really only, I could count on two hands the amount of malt companies around the world.
Wow.
And
they're global. You're
global.
You're importing.
One of the bigger malt companies in the U.S. is a European-owned company. So their profits, certainly they're employing people at their plants and all of that, but there's money that's being extracted out of our economy that, that creates an impact over time. In fact, you look at certain cities, even Holyoke being one of them, where, after a while, the money keeps getting extracted and, where's the wealth? It's not here anymore.
It's really important, yeah.
And so, and also just building community. So I think being this middle person really allows us to kind of be part of a much bigger community. with all of the breweries that we support and the farmers that we support. So yeah, I think the idea of starting a brewery was pretty short.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of starting a malt house, this is a lifelong endeavor now.
But your business growth, what I love about that is that it means growth for a lot of other places as well. And you've allowed for more farms to start growing different grains. And now you've obviously expanded into flour as well. Talk a little bit about that and how you got involved in now doing flour production too.
So the flour story is almost a full circle. So that original article that I read in 2009 was partly about the Hungry Ghost and their interest in using local flour. And Jonathan and Cheryl, who own Hungry Ghost, we invited them to our field day. We have a field day every summer where people can come and brewers and customers can come and look at the fields of grain and see the malt house, and we eat and we drink and we celebrate, you know. And he came and he said, you know, because we were supplying them with a little bit of malt, which malt is also used a lot in the baking industry. And he said, I know about this couple in Vermont. They're making these new granite stone mills. And I could really use more local flour. Would you guys be interested at all in putting in a mill and milling for us? And so, you know, we said, sure, we'll look into it, found out how much this mill cost and what the turnaround time would be. And so we decided that that would be a nice way to kind of grow our business as well.
Oh.
And so we decided to call it something different. So it's called Ground Up. And for the first, I would say, year, we really were just milling for the Hungry Ghost and another bakery we had a relationship with called Birch Tree in Worcester. And then COVID happened, and April and May of 2020, there was a flour shortage. People could not even find flour on the shelves.
Which was happening right as the sourdough movement was going and people were all home baking and it was impossible to find flour. I remember.
Yep. And so we were just ready for it. And we had, you know, extra grain that we were able to secure, and we started getting into more retail packaging of our flour. And that business has really taken off since 2020. So this was the first space that we renovated when we got our lease on the building, and it's the original space, the original mill building. So we decided to kind of keep everything as antique as possible, or you know, like we wanted to keep the brick, we wanted to keep the beams. But yeah, do you want to see some of the wheat that we work with?
Yeah, let's see.
This is our soft white
really
wheat
good.
called Harris. It's a heirloom variety.
Wow.
And that is in our pastry flour and our all-purpose flour and a little bit in our bread flour. And then this is that wheat that I was mentioning about the Culinary Institute doing some baking trials and deciding that this had excellent flavor.
Wow.
Not only does it have excellent flavor, this is where you're just like, Mother Nature knows what she's doing. The farmers love this wheat.
Really?
It's a winter wheat. It yields really well. It is winter hardy, so that if it's you have a cold snap, it's not going to winter kill. So the farmers that grow this, they absolutely love it. And then it's so great because we use it on both the malting side and the milling side.
Oh, wow.
And it's just a win-win for everybody.
Everybody loves it.
The brewers love it, the bakers love it, we love it, the farmers love it. So it's just like, you know, it would be hard to find a replacement for Warthog.
Warthog is the name?
Warthog,
I love it. Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah.
And one of the other reasons why you chose Holyoke too is that the power here is hydroelectric power, which is another really cool component in terms of your focus on sustainability. Talk with me a little bit about, I mean, you're right on the river and the canal system. How does all that work in terms of actually supplying you guys with power?
Well, my understanding is that, so like for instance, this building has a hydro turbine in it that produces a certain amount of kilowatt energy. The dam does. And my understanding is that it goes to a central spot and then gets dispersed throughout the grid here just in Holyoke.
Wow.
And so for us, Holyoke, given the amount of electricity that we knew that we were going to use, we really wanted to be in an area where the rates weren't going to fluctuate all that much. And so we figured, number one, it being more renewable domestic source of energy was super appealing to us.
Yeah.
Right now where we are in Hadley, most of our malt house is tied to solar.
Wow. That's
So, we wanted to keep that sustainability aspect of our malt where, we tell people, well, it's not only local, but, we're using either solar or now hydroelectric. Knowing that Holyoke had that power for us and knowing that the power was going to be affordable and knowing that it's coming from renewable sources, it would have been really hard to not land in Holyoke.
Yeah, no, it's win-win-win. That's terrific.
Yeah.
One of your taglines that I love is no farms, no beer. And I think, one of the key points that underscores the work you're doing here is this notion of sustainability. And it's something we were really focusing on too with the seasonable types, which is just to say, where and how are you creating not just a business model, but an ecosystem, one that allows for a circular economy and for more sustainability overall in the region. Talk with me a little bit about, having locally grown grains in the area and what that does to help with issues like the climate crisis.
Agriculture in the Northeast is different than agriculture in the rest of the United States in that we don't have a lot of land. We have a lot of really rich land, and we have to learn how to create markets for farmers to grow things that are going to be profitable for them, but that also contribute to more regenerative practices. The people that own the property before us, they put up this solar array. It's actually meant to be where you can actually farm underneath it.
Very cool.
So it's meant to be something that's a little bit more of a mixed use array.
Wow.
And it's 150 kilowatts. It goes into the grid, although, we can kind of say that we're drawing our energy from it, but that is how it works. It goes into the grid and then a credit comes through. We did the same thing, that whole south-facing part of the roof there is all solar as well.
Wow.
I was joking with you when we spoke last year, but it was like, I was like, oh wait, you're friends with all the bakers and all the brewers. Like, I want to know this woman, right? Like, she knows all the fun people in this industry.
It is pretty awesome.
Yeah, but it's neat too because you've been able to build this community and make all these connections and like help a lot of these other businesses grow. Talk with me a little bit about that and playing that role.
I mean, other than it just being, it just feels so good to like work with other people, and to be able to tell a story that's like real and authentic and, be able to look at something like a beer where, that we've all of our hands have touched this thing and, just to be able to know that part of their story, what lets them tell their story is what we were able to provide in our little piece of the ingredient.